This is the 9th annual Silicon Valley Asia Pacific Film Festival, and I'm actually in sort of my 9th year in my show too. So the festival and my show have sort of grown up together, and we've seen a lot of changes over those 9 years. And one of the things that has really been very gratifying is to see the support in the community grow for both. And so we really appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight. First and foremost, you got to admit the food you're eating here is much better than the popcorn and Coke you usually drink at the movies, right? Okay. This is a really, by the way, a great looking crowd. I'm not just saying that. I kind of thought I was, you know, seeing the cast of Love in Taipei here. But it really is just so great to see a full house here, and the enthusiasm that we've been feeling for CATS, the contemporary Asian theater scene, as we like to call it, CATS. They have been such an essential organization for the Asian American and Pacific Islander community, for not only the artists and for the arts, but also for just getting the word out to people about what's going on. And it's really been great because people respond, you know? I think there's been a lot of time when the AAPI community kind of felt like they weren't really a part of that whole art scene, and that the cultural kind of things that were going on in their communities were sort of isolated. And now it's great to see that with films like Love in Taipei and books like Love Boat Taipei, that we're seeing so much of the our culture being sort of ingrained into the mainstream culture. So first of all, how about a round of applause for CATS for celebrating its 9th year. We want to hear a presentation of a CATS special award, and this is called the Image Hero Award, and it's going to be presented by Leianne Lamb, the CATS president. And this person that's going to be receiving this is a very special artist and someone that's been in the community for a long time. I won't tip my hand, but he and I have known each other for an awful long time. And so we saw each other, and we were laughing because they're going to show some pictures of us when we were younger. Which is, I know, it's like a horror movie category now. All right, Leianne, you want to come up here and make this presentation?
Sure, right behind you. Hello. I would like to, I am so glad to be here. Thank you so much for supporting and empowering AAPI voices. I'd like to bring the rest of the CATS forward. Not that, you know, we do things together as a group. So I'd like to bring the CATS board up here as well. Please. Okay. Thank you, Duane. It is my pleasure and honor to award the 2023 Image Hero Award to Duane Kubo. Duane, we established an award for icons and heroes that really represent the AAPI and media arts community. And it is our pleasure and honor to have you to present this, because you not only were the co-founder of Visual Communications, but you actually founded J-Town Film Festival many years ago, which is the Silicon Valley Asia Pacific Festival. So without Duane, this would have never happened. Yeah. So thank you so much, Duane. Really appreciate it. And as a gift from our neighborhood artist, Ken Matsumoto, we'd like to present this as a beautiful gift in support of that.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much. I so admire Ken's work, but even more so, I admire Kat's work. And thank you so much, all of you. I especially want to thank all of the OGs, Leianne, Cindy, Joanne, especially Reiko, Mickey, who's been doing it for so long, because they not only do the film festival, but they've really stepped up your activities this year.
And LaDonna and Caroline.
LaDonna is here, Caroline.
As well.
Yeah, thank you so much, all of you. I'm really humbled by this, because I know the past awardees. I've actually given out this award on behalf of CATS. And I see one of your awardees here, Floyd Oi Wong, the legend, who will have a film on Sunday. But, let me start with, you know that I'm Asian, so I have to start with thanking my family. And I really do want to do so. My wife, Lucian, is up there, and we've been married for like 43 years, so she's seen a lot. And when I started Hito Hata, the film, 43 years ago. I think I worked on it for about 2 years, so she didn't see me for about 2 years after we got married, because it was quite the project. But and I also should go back to my parents, who really did allow me to pursue a film degree at UCLA instead of going into dentistry, which is where I was headed. So back in the day, in the late 60s, if you told your folks you're going to go into filmmaking, it's kind of like, wow, what is that? Where are you going to get a job? There's no Asian American films. I mean, that's really ridiculous. And so, you know, 50 years later, here we are. And 50 years later, quite frankly, I was so impressed. I talked to some of my colleagues from visual communications, and they're up from Los Angeles. I asked them how many entries they had for this year's film festival in Los Angeles, and they said they got 700 entries for their APA film festival. So that's where it began. I did one of the first films, and we had 700 entries, you know, this week. So anyway, that's a bit of how things have grown, and it's because of people like this who have done the work. I want to go on to thank other people. Films are a real collaborative medium. You don't make films by yourself. There are many people behind and in front of the camera. And in my case, much of what I brought to the screen happened here in San Jose. That is, I grew up in San Jose, Japantown. I consider myself really lucky to have taken advantage of the many activities in Japantown, San Jose. And I knew Vicky Takeda back then when we were growing up, but you know, the Buddhist church, San Jose CYS, basketball and baseball, the band. I went to many of the activities that were offered when we were growing up. And so it wasn't difficult for me to have an Asian American perspective, or an Asian American or Japanese American perspective, when I wanted to start to make films about our people, our community. And so I really credit people like Reiko Iwanaga, who helped me, you know, understand what community was really about. She's a very celebrated dance instructor, as you know, at the Buddhist church, among many other things. And so people like Reiko helped me understand what it meant to be part of a community. So I want to thank you and all of the others. Also in my, after leaving San Jose and going to UCLA, I think some of the biggest influences in my life were the Asian American movement that was happening at the time. And for the first time, we as Asian Americans started to project our hopes and dreams and our fears and our and the projects that we really wanted to do, our history and our community kind of thing. And so I really gained a lot of understanding by becoming part of the Asian American Studies Center at UCLA. And later, that helped me become involved with GIDRA, which was the first Asian American news monthly. And then from that, a lot of the people kind of orbiting in the same circles formed visual communications. And you may have seen out in the lobby, there's a set of cubes with the very first display about America's concentration camps. That was done in 1969. So more than 50 years ago, my group was starting to bring out the history that had been hidden about our communities. And so that's what I was all about. That's what visual communications is all about. And I'm so proud to see that CATS is continuing in that same vein. So thank you all for coming out and supporting CATS and the film festival. Thank you, CATS. I'm just overjoyed about receiving this award. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and congratulations, Duane. I don't think anybody recognizes us on those pictures. Anyway, he is, though, definitely one of the pioneers of the, not only Asian American filmmakers, but also just breaking that ground at that time. I remember that when we first met, I did a story about his film, and I was the first Asian American reporter at KNTV at the time, and so we were really talking about how we were just sort of like looking ahead and wondering, where is this all going to go? And so to see Duane being honored here like this and him being able to achieve the career he had, it's really gratifying and a real honor to be here at the time that he's being honored. So congratulations, Duane. Yeah. And we want to make sure people know that his Hito Hata, Raise the Banner, is going to be shown on Sunday morning. So if you can make it back, we want to make sure that you can see that.
Hi everyone, I'm Reiko Iwanaga, part of CATS. And on behalf of Contemporary Asian Theater Scene, I'd like to welcome all of you, especially for this really landmark screening of Duane Kubo's film. Duane and Robert Nakamura were the directors for this landmark film. Tell you a little bit about CATS. We're quite passionate about showcasing Asian American art and artists in very different mediums, and we hope you will check our website to see that we've had music concerts, film screenings, and interviews with the AAPI guests. We thank you all for supporting AAPI Voices, and we'd like to thank a few major sponsors: the City of San Jose, County of Santa Clara County, especially Supervisor Otto Lee, SV Creates, CM Capital, AARP, and Friends of Cats. And if you'll check your programs, you'll see a list of sponsors. After the screening, we'll enjoy a Q&A moderated by Susan Hayase. And first, we're going to start with a short by Duane entitled The 70s, The Fight for Little Tokyo. Thank you.
In those 10 years, I think we built up a real trust in the community that we were doing accurate portrayals of our history and the people that were involved. And we built up enough trust within the community to do some things with Hito Hata that had never been done before.
frankly, I'm overwhelmed. Thank you, Duane. That's a remarkable achievement and such a creative way for telling the story for posterity. And to couple it with the documentary was genius too. And so we all want to hear the insight about all the challenges, looking at all the extras that were in the movies and the costumes, etc. The challenges have been so overwhelming. So let me first welcome Duane Kubo. He was our Image Hero Award recipient this year. He's our activist, historian, preeminent filmmaker, right here. No. And he was one of the founders of Visual Communications, college dean at the Anza College of Intercultural and International Studies, and then even after retirement formed J-Town Community TV so that he can continue to document what's happening in our community. And please welcome our moderator, Susan Hayase. She's a longtime activist, part of the grassroots organizing team for redress with the Nihon Machi Outreach Committee and the National Coalition for Redress Reparations, and she is a co-founder of Nikkei Resistors. So welcome.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you.
Test 2, thank you.
Oh, great. Oh, wow, this is so amazing. I feel like Reiko kind of overcome by seeing this film again. I've been begging Duane for years to bring Hito Hata back. Let's see, I just want to quote my husband Tom. Whenever we come to Sunnyvale, he always says, I guess Sunnyvale really is a city of destiny. I think that's the city motto. And on the way here, we passed Duane Avenue, so I think there were all these signs that told us that this was going to be a great showing. I want to congratulate you for your Image Hero Award. This is incredibly well-deserved, and I also want to comment that the combining of the short film Fight for Little Tokyo and Hito Hata is just really inspired. I just came back from Little Tokyo, and the Fight for Little Tokyo and for San Jose Japantown and San Francisco Japantown, as well as the once and future Sacramento Japantown and Sawtelle Japantown, the struggle is currently happening. So this is very relevant. And I also want to say that, in 1980 when Hito Hata came out, that this was just so meaningful to me personally. I was just getting involved in the redress movement, and the history of our people was just being uncovered and being unearthed with sweat and tears. And so this film is extremely important.
That's so nice to hear, since Susan is one of the people I most admire in San Jose. I just wanted to mention, it wasn't mentioned, that just last month she got the Freedom Fighter Award from the NAACP. Wow. So,
what I wanted to do was give you a chance to go back in time a little bit and give us some context. Like, what were you, what brought you to the point where you were going to make a movie like Hito Hata? Like, what were the things that influenced you, and where were you at? I know that you were part of the formation of VC, which was very significant, but maybe you could kind of tell us who you were, that brought you to the...
Sure. I did want to play the documentary before the film to give people outside of LA some context for the film and why we were so kind of consumed about redevelopment. That we had been in the redevelopment fight for a decade. Visual Communications was actually housed in the Sun Building, which was the unofficial community center of Little Tokyo, which was scheduled for evictions. So we were there right in the forefront of the fight. And it really, I think, combined well with VC's overall kind of outlook on media and documentation. we spent a lot of time documenting what was happening in Little Tokyo before doing Hito Hata as a dramatic film. We did a lot of documentary footage. In fact, let me just describe to you how we used media in that fight for Little Tokyo. As you saw later in the film, the redevelopment agency was holding meetings in the afternoon, and so the people in Little Tokyo who were working could never go to those meetings. And so their future was being discussed while they were not there. So we would literally drag down our video cameras and big video machines. At that time, they probably weighed 30, 40 pounds. And we would record the CRA meetings, the redevelopment agency meetings, and then take that videotape back to the hotel, in that hotel lobby, set up a TV, and play back the meeting that the redevelopment agency had been discussing about Little Tokyo, about the futures of these residents that were in the hotels. So we really tried to use media as a tool for our organizing and our fight in Little Tokyo. And I just wanted to say that you were asking about some of the influences that we had. This was really a tactic and a way of using media that we learned right away in the late 60s, early 70s from a group in New York called Downtown Community TV. And they had a big influence on me. They used video as an organizing tool in the tenants' rights organizing in New York City. And right away we could see how that would be effective in Little Tokyo. Let me just go, I hate to go on, but there's kind of a lot of influences, I think, in my life to put together a film like this. And I wanted to start with really thanking the San Jose Japanese American community, because that's where I grew up. I understand, I think, a lot of the nuances of the JA community and tried to build a lot of that into this film. I was born and raised in the Buddhist church, went to Japanese language school. My parents sent me down to J-Town 3-4 times a week. I was in judo, CYS, basketball, baseball, all of that stuff. I really took advantage, I think, of all the benefits of growing up in a Japanese American context. So later, when it came time to do films or to put out a point of view, it wasn't hard for me, I think, to have an Asian American perspective, because I grew up here in San Jose, Japantown. That's how we view things. And then, as I went to UCLA at exactly the right time, I think that view was tempered by the Asian American movement that was going on at the same time. I went to UCLA in 1968, and I should say that when I was a senior in high school here in San Jose, you guys remember, all hell was breaking loose. That year, my senior year, Martin Luther King was assassinated, Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated. It seemed almost hopeless in terms of our future. Here you were graduating from high school and looking forward to your future, and it was just like, Watts was burning and there was all kinds of stuff going on. But I guess what I would say about that is that those dark times really led to the formation of the Asian American movement and the resistance, and really the coming together of many different people. And so overall, it was such a positive time in terms of our getting to know who we were as AAPI people. And so that's a lot of the background, but I'm old, it's been a long time.
Well, yeah, so I think that the strength of conviction and the politics really comes out in the film, but also the nuances that you mentioned, the nuances that you picked up from growing up in the Japanese American community. I love that scene in the fish market where the sensei is, bragging about his car, and then the issei are kind of talking about him behind his back in Nihongo, and he doesn't know what's going on. They're just laughing at him, and so that was just really great. But so at the time that Hito Hata was made, people had already seen Farewell to Manzanar, and there was some documentary films that were available about 442nd. but you chose to focus on the Issei. And I think that's really important to think about because they haven't been covered. And I think that some people tend to think of Issei as these, a certain way. Don't think of them as young people or as middle-aged people. Only think about them as old people. So could you talk about why did you decide to focus on the Issei? Why were they the center of your story, and where did that story come from?
So of course we had to start with the Issei. They're the first generation, and we wanted to do Japanese American stories. But I should say that the story of Oda, Oda is really a composite Issei character. The stories that we built into the film were stories that we had heard in the previous 10 years of doing VC work. And you may know that Bob Nakamura did Watari Dori, Birds of Passage, really, which is the documentary version of this film, focused on 3 Issei. So we had already done a number of films about Issei people, but not in a narrative form. But in interviewing many of those Isseis, we heard all these stories that, as a writer or as a filmmaker, you kind of keep in your back pocket. But when it came time to finally put it on the screen, we got to kind of throw it all out there. And let me just comment on how the story came about. You saw that the storyline credits were by Visual Communications, and that's because we really worked as a collaborative group. The story actually came out from a process where we sat around a table and just threw out ideas and started to just say lines and go back and forth and really just kind of put together a group script. Now, I know that all the filmmakers will tell you that's impossible because you have all these different ideas and strong opinions, but we kind of hammered out the storyline, and then Bob Nakamura and John Osaki wrote the dialogue, wrote the script, and they got the script credits. But the story was by VC. Many of the stories that you saw were instances, true life instances that we had heard while interviewing Issei for documentaries. And then you kind of say those to put into a feature film that we finally did.
Oh, that's great. So, in other words, a lot of the oral history type work and just interviewing people that really paid off in terms of understanding kind of the essence of kind of the diversity of Issei character, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so that kind of leads into something that I think is also another real strength of Hito Hata is the diversity of the Issei characters and then the actors that brought that to life. And it's just so wonderful because I think for a lot of us, we've grown up watching stereotypes of ourselves in TV. Once in a blue moon, an Asian character would show up and then they'd be a little stereotype. And it's so disappointing, even though, you hunger for more. So could you talk about, the actors and how did you get them, and tell us a little bit about what it was like to work with them? And
so first of all, we're so lucky to have East-West Players in LA. They actually started in 1965 before VC. They have been doing plays. And you should know, Mako is the legend. Even back then, he was the man. And I have to say that I think much of the character of Oda was written with Mako in mind as we were kind of throwing out ideas, and you kind of think about, well, what would a guy like Mako do? And so finally, when we had a script and it was time to go out and talk to some actors, of course we had to approach Mako first. And so Bob Nakamura and I, we go over to Mako's, to the East-West Players Playhouse one time. And we kind of go, oh, hi, Mako, we want to talk to you. And he's the man, and we're just I'm 19 years, I'm 29 years old. And Bob, we're doing our first film, feature-length film. And so we're talking to him about the script, and we're all excited, and we think it's great. And, and he's just like in the film, expressionless. He's like, okay, and And we keep talking, and he's not like warming up. And we're starting to get a little nervous, and then we finally, you know, we're really kind of throwing it out there. I think you're the only guy that can. And then he just goes, "Nah, man, I can't do it. This is not good, blah, blah, blah." And then we're like shocked.
Not good like what? Like what?
You know, he's not very explicit. He just, no, I don't want to do this.
Oh.
So Bob and I, you know, we're like, what are we going to do? We wrote this form mock and okay, so we stand up and we're about to walk out, and all of a sudden you hear this, just like in the movie. It's exactly like he was when he was jumping onto that tree stump. And sure enough, he's like laughing his head off, and he goes, "I'm only kidding you guys," and blah, 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 but you should have seen the expression on your face and all this kind of stuff. So that's Mako, and that's the kind of guy he was. He was a real jokester, really gruff exterior, really a real softie in the inside. So that's a good story about him because he was known as the man. I wanted to, I've been asked many times to talk about Pat Morita as well because, so Pat Morita used that scene up on the roof of the hotel where he's evicting the pigeons. He used that scene to audition for Karate Kid. So, as you know, the rest is history. So when we first met Pat, he had already been a star in Happy Days. He was on in Happy Days. And so when someone suggested that we use him as our Yamada-san, Bob and I were going, you know, Pat Morita, he's like the hip nip. I'm not sure if he even gets what we're doing, kind of thing. And he was a little too hip for us. But so when he came into audition, wow, the first thing he says to us is, "I read this script." And he's almost breaking down, and he goes, "I have never read something like this. I've never been able to play a part that really is about a real Issei person. They've always made me play, you know, some jokester, and I have to crack jokes. And here's Arnold from Happy Days telling us that he really appreciates our script." And so, yeah, Pat was really, he had a lot to do with the star power of the people around on the crew because, you know, he was pretty well known up to that. I want to just talk about one story about that because I know Reiko is here, who reminded me, my good friend Steve Yamaguma, who, you know, we've been friends since I did the Hiroshima film. But Steve came down to LA to work on the Hito Hata crew because he was so into the whole scene there. And so Steve shows up and I said, "Steve, okay, you know, why don't you be Pat Morita's personal assistant? Because these guys, you know, they need help, they need to be kind of, you know, taken care of. Hold his hand, you know, get him to the scene at the right time, make sure he's not," well, I won't go to that part. So Steve is doing a great job, and the first thing, I introduced him to Pat, and after I introduced them, the first thing Pat does is he brings out a quart of Stolichnaya vodka, and he gives it to Steve, and he says, "Could you put this in the freezer, and when I tell you, bring me out a glass of this Stolichnaya." So that's a very important job that he gave Steve. So sure enough, just before shooting scenes, he would tell Steve, "Go get it." So Steve would run over to the freezer, pour a pretty tall glass of vodka, give it to Pat, and he would knock it back, one gulp, then he would go out and just kill the scene.
Wow, that is so amazing. Wow, that's just wonderful because I think, you know, a lot of people really admire Pat Morita and think of him with great affection, and also Steve Yamaguma too. So that's a great connection. Do we have any questions from the audience? We wanted to give people a chance to ask Duane something. So I'm looking, I can't really see very well, so maybe...
yeah, just raise a hand, we'll run a mic to you.
Okay. maybe while we're waiting for a question, maybe could you just talk a little bit about like how hard was it to make this film? I mean, did you have funding?
So the way we were able to pull this film off, you know, VC had been doing about 10 years of Department of Education documentaries about Asian Americans. And when we, around 1978, finally got funding for a 6-part series, 6 half hours on Japanese Americans, that's when we saw our opportunity to kind of put all of those half hours together to do a feature-length film, one long story instead of short documentaries. That wasn't what the funder had funded us for, but we just decided to go for it. There was no lump of money of that size. That grant was for $300,000. So we did that film on a little more than $300,000. We had to make up money at the end, and yes, it was funded by the Department of Ed with a lot of help later by the community to make up the debt that we went into.
So were the,
Oh, we got a question on that
oh,
side.
okay, good.
Hello, I'm to your right. I know the light's blinding. My name's Anthony. First, foremost, Duane, thank you for doing this video. This is an amazing movie. The question is for you. What is your hope with the film going toward like the next generation? Because I think there has been a shift in awareness of generation, intersectionality. I feel like there's also a new wave of activism that's starting to start showing up. And so I'm curious, what is your hopes for this movie? How do you see this? How would you like to see this like show up in a way to give the gift that you've given me today?
Thank you for the question, because I've been trying to think a lot about where this film is today. I'm not even sure if theaters and this kind of screening is what really the future is. It certainly isn't what a lot of young people are doing. So I would hope that Hito Hata would become a stepping stone, become archived, but become important enough that young people would view it to see where we've been. This was done almost 50 years ago now, and isn't that amazing? And so I have to say that, I've been asked this before, am I kind of disappointed at where Asian American media is today? We've had 50 years of experience, and I don't know, we should kind of a step backwards about 5 years ago with the Trump administration and all the backlash that we were getting. And so I'm thinking that if Hito Hata could just be archived in its proper place and that people could see where we were to be able to build our future, I would be very satisfied with that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
One over here.
My name is Peter. I saw in the credits that the band Hiroshima was listed there, and I also saw in the film that the taiko drummer Johnny Mori also was in there. How was the connection with Hiroshima made?
I think these young soundstays in LA used to just kind of hang out together. I know I did, and I used to hang out with the band actually. So you may not know that I did a film before this called Cruisin' J-Town, which was about the group Hiroshima. So it wasn't hard to go to Dan and June and say, can you guys do the music for us? They've been our music background for many, many years. And so, yeah, we were very close to the band. I think we all came out of the same Asian American movement of expression from our community. Johnny, and same with Kinata Taiko. I did an early film. In fact, Kinata Taiko is in Cruisin' J-Town. And so we always had close ties. There were a number of people from Kinata Taiko in the film, not just as taiko players, but playing different roles. So we had a close relationship, but I think many of the movement groups in LA were pretty close. I would also say, you have 5 minutes of credits after this film. A lot of them were nonprofits and community groups in LA with whom we had worked the previous 10 years. And so we had, for example, that Nisei Week scene, 200 extras come out, volunteer their time to be out there all night long to be able to be part of this crowd scene and to help us out to make a bigger movie. I mean, we didn't have the budget to actually pay for extras. And one other thing about that scene, all of the movie studios in LA tried to shut down East First Street because of its environmental feel in Little Tokyo, and none of them would let a studio do that. We went to every shop owner on the street and told them what we were going to do. And Nancy Araki and Amy Kato were able to shut down East First Street so we could all night long film that Nisei Week scene.
Wow. So it sounds like as part of the movement, there was organizing, there was photography, there was filmmaking, there was interviewing, there was music, there was socializing. I mean, it sounds like very multifaceted. It was part of the, you know, like I like the thing that Oda says in the film, that Little Tokyo is the people. And that's so inspiring. That really comes out strongly. Is there another question?
Hi, so my name's Matthew, and I'm wondering about the concept of Hito Hata itself. I find it's like almost curious that it was sort of like a book ending towards the end, because, you know, at the end he's raising the banner for Little Tokyo, which is not how he imagined holding the banner, you know, probably back in Kagoshima, his hometown, how he originally kind of imagined that. So I'm wondering about like the historicity of this concept, where it seems like some people in Japan were told like, oh, if you come to America, well, you'll get rich and you'll be able to come back to your hometown and hold up a banner, like a success banner.
Well, thank you for noticing that. That is that was the intent of the ending, that he would be, of course, raising his banner. It was kind of hard in 1980 to understand where this was going to end up. In fact, redevelopment is still going on today. Gentrification is a big issue. It's been an ongoing thing. But by the time we shot the final scenes of the film, it was still unclear. For example, I mean, that hotel was never evicted. There was enough resistance, you know, put up. But for example, the Sun building that VC was housed in was eventually torn down, and there's a big Weller Court shopping center there. So, you know, different things happened, but I think the symbolism is what we were just trying to show at that time.
We have one more up top, and I think we have time for one more just down here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, why don't you yell it out?
Oh, well, I have two questions. I was wondering if the hotel is still there down in LA.
Yes, those hotels are still there. The north side of East First Street is a historical district now. And but all of those hotels have been turned into, they're like, I don't know what you call it.
Affordable housing, right?
No, they're actually mini suites and higher end rentals. Yeah, in some of them.
Oh.
Yes.
And the other question is, when was this film and where was it like debuted?
Well, it was filmed in 1979 and 1980, and it debuted at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles.
It also played up here.
It showed all around the country. We did in most big cities, especially those with Japanese American communities. We played maybe a dozen cities. It played, we never got a national PBS broadcast, a couple local broadcasts like KCT in Los Angeles, and it played once on the Tokyo Broadcasting System.
Yeah, I think this film played around in a lot of cities where Japanese Americans were organizing for redress reparations. So you can see that this was really part of the reversing the erasure of Japanese American history. That was part of the redress organizing too. So it was very significant to the Japanese communities that it was shown in.
So just before we wrap up, I just had one other thing to say, and that is, you know, Friday night, Cats gave me the Image Hero Award, and I certainly appreciate that and thank them. And as I was actually thanking people for the award, I'm looking at my notes and I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to save this last thank you for today's showing because it's more appropriate. You could kind of see the history of what I have been doing. And what I wanted to do Friday night was, I'm going to dedicate the award that I received to Steve Yamaguma, who I know all of you know that he was one of the co-founders of CATS, one of the co-founders of Sanzei Taiko, all kinds of different activities. But more than that, Steve was my good friend for many years, as far back as the early 70s when I was doing the Hiroshima film. He was so interested in the band. He actually came down to LA, started hanging out with Hiroshima. You can see Steve's credits on the first Hiroshima album. Steve's credits are in this film as well. And so, I just think that I just really miss the guy, and I want to dedicate my part of the award to him. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dan, and thank you to the festival and to CATS.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Oh, great.
Yeah. All right, we got one over here, mic 4.
Hi, I'm Susie Willems-Carams. I'm here representing one of the community co-sponsors, National Association of Asian American Professionals, San Jose. And my question is, like back in college, I finally found Asian American history. We didn't have it, we hardly heard anything about Asian American history in high school. The only thing I heard about was like one line in my history book about the 442nd. So when I got to San Francisco State and found Asian American Studies, I was so excited. I took several classes. So, and one of my instructors was Steve Nakajo from Kimochi. He greatly influenced me and got me more involved with the Asian American community. So my question is, how do you see your film in terms of like reintroducing it to the universities? Because college was a big influence on me, and getting people more active like through film.
Well, I certainly think film would be a good way of doing that. I'm not sure if Hito Hata, I think, as I said, it can be played as an archival piece, and I hope it's something that young Asian American filmmakers can build on. I think I'm looking to the future to younger Asian American filmmakers like Tad Nakamura and all the shorts that we're going to see after this to really carry that torch, you might say. I think Hito Hata had a place in Asian American film history. I hope it can be shown as that archival piece, that something that we had done back in 1980. But I hope that the young folks can take that and take it beyond where we were. So.
If you have more questions, we have Duane coming outside for a meet and greet, and you can ask a lot of questions. 2 things I wanted to say in the program. We do have a remembrance to Steve Yamaguma. Secondly, there is a notation to see the interview with Duane and Vicky Takeda. That is wonderful. And thank you to all of you for attending. Thank you, Susan, for a wonderful moderation, and Duane especially for this incredible film. And I already can see other uses for it locally too. So thank you very much. Thank you all.